All right. So, just a quick introduction. My name is Michael Bugay. I'm the CMO here at Tembi, and I'm here together with.
With me, I'm Christian, and I'm head of product development here in Tembi.
And today we're here to talk a little bit about our new growth prediction models, together with our size estimation models and how they work, to give people a little background and especially what you can do with these models and how they work. So just to start, for if anyone doesn't know who we are at what we do at Tembi. So at Tembi, we collect large scales of data from online retailers. So we have our machines or agents that collect enormous amounts of data, but visiting every website, um, extracting data from the checkout, extracting product catalogs, and also gathering data and information about the webshop ownership, financials, and everything. And combining all of this data, we then present it, visualize it through our market analytics platform that we give access to our clients. So today, having all of this data, of course, we then try to figure out ways of utilizing data. And today we are here to talk about the growth prediction models. So maybe to start, Christian, could you maybe tell us a little bit about how this came about? So where does this idea about the growth prediction model come from, and how did this all start?
Yeah, for sure. So we have been active in several markets during the last many years, and we are continuously hearing the same question: how do I find the winner of tomorrow? So how do I actually figure out who is going to be the next Zalando, or who is actually going to be the next market leader in my market? And everyone knows the top 100 web shops and can go in and ask an LLM to find them. But how do we actually identify other web shops before the rest of the market, and how do we actually utilize data to figure out who is going to be tomorrow's winner? So it's been a question that pops up every time almost when we have been in a customer dialogue, and for that reason we also put together a task force to actually figure out how can we utilize all the data that we have collected in a way to also predict the future.
Nice. And so just to understand the sheer amount of scale of it. So every market has tens of thousands of web shops. So how did you go about to determine which are the factors that are important to look into it, and what were the challenges in doing these type of models?
So everyone that knows a bit about modeling also knows that the first challenge you're facing is data, and it's data quality and also access across multiple markets. So the first thing we actually did at Tembi was to go a bit another way around and start by setting down a task force where we combined the knowledge from customer success, from sales, and also from our engineering team to actually brainstorm about what type of data do we use normally hear from our customers that is also having an impact on these elements. And then after that, and we did a brainstorm and we start selecting and voting, okay, this is what actually makes sense. Then we also went back to what we can say the engineering room. We took a look at, okay, how is the data then look like when we go in here? Because some of the data we are in control of ourselves. That is all the elements that we are collecting, everything from understanding all the delivery in a web shop to that technical setup, export markets, traffic, and other kind of inputs that is going into our model. But there's also elements that we don't control, because we are connecting all the web shops to financial numbers and to information about the company behind them. So of course, financial performance also have an impact, but we also know that from looking at the 22 different markets that we are operating in, there's very different legal aspects that fits into this. As an example, in Denmark, we are not publishing revenue but gross profit for most of the websites.
Okay.
Looking at Sweden, they have revenue open and it's available for everyone. And then we can take the Netherlands. They only publish the balance sheet, so then you can look at equity and other kind of information, but not the actual performance from the P&L. So we combine all this information, combine all the data and the knowledge that we put into the same room, and then we start actually looking into to how we can combine it in a way so it's both scalable and also so we are covering all the web shops that we are collecting data from.
All right. So basically, what you're saying, just to wrap up a little bit, it's to say, not to wrap up, to sum up, is to talk about the whole aspect that data is not homogeneous between the markets, and hence we need to figure out a good way of modeling in order to surpass the challenge of not having the same data everywhere.
Exactly. And also, this is something that we can do now because we have collected the same type of data throughout years. So that also means that the knowledge we have from Denmark, where we kicked off, we can actually start applying that also to other markets about what kind of trend curves and what kind of event is actually triggering a growth in a webshop. And when you apply modeling on top of that, you can actually start looking at a growth and a predicted growth.
So let's say we have a client or we're just interested in looking into a very specific web shop. And let's say there was a new one that was started just a couple of months ago and we just detected it. Do we have, can we apply that model immediately on that web shop, or do we have to wait a certain amount of time?
So how we have set it up right now is that, first of all, we can classify our web shop based on the size indication. So that is basically from 0 to 100 to get a feeling about what size is this web shop. This, of course, not telling us anything about the future and the prediction. And what we say is that we need at least 3 months of tracking before we start doing prediction. We visit all web shop bi-weekly, so that also means that we will start seeing actually a trend curve, and we'll start seeing events in a web shop that indicates also the growth.
All right. And we're not here only to talk about, of course, soon we'll show exactly how it looks and how we do it. But from a simple perspective, right, there are two main factors which you can look when you're looking at growth. One, because it's traffic data, look at historical data and seeing kind of trends and how it goes. The second thing is financial numbers. Of course, financial numbers are not released continuously, which makes it difficult to get during the year information. It's quite often over 1 year old. And the second thing, traffic data is also lag 1 month. And then, of course, it doesn't give you a prediction for the future. It just gives you kind of an historical indication, right? So what are the elements that we are using at Tembi in order to determine the modeling, like the growth rate?
Yeah, you're touching something that we hear very often, Michael, that the first thing we often hear when we go into the room is that we are a classic company and we are looking at financial numbers. And that's also a very classic and sometimes also a bit old approach to it, because we can also see that there is often a lag in up to 1.5 years before you actually start receiving these kind of data. And that also means that in the meantime, everyone that knows the online business knows also that things can go really fast and you will miss out on opportunities. And that is also the case when we look at traffic, because traffic is also impacted by seasonality. Everything goes up around Black Friday, Christmas, and then some are strong on the clothes and stuff like that is relevant in the summer period. So what we have done here in the process is that we have looked at different elements that is indicating that something is changing in the webshop. So we are, as an example, very tangible, we are looking at what kind of delivery offering and services are the webshop using. So we can see that if a webshop is start utilizing delivery providers as FedEx, UPS, DSL, global providers that is strong at like long distance delivery, that's a good indication of actually a growth. And then combining that also to look at export markets and which kind of webshop, what kind of markets the webshop is start adding, then we can start seeing some trends in that side of the model. And when we look at export markets, we also look at what kind of markets they are actually start targeting. Because we are combining our data with the World Bank, where we go in and look at how much online engagements do we see in each market, and then combining that with also which market they start targeting. At the same time, we also go in and look at the technology that the webshop is using. Because there's both the platform aspect of it and the infrastructure, which is what kind of platform are they built on, the payment, the basic you need to have as a webshop. But you also start using add-ons if you are on a growth pattern. So you start optimizing your email outreach, you start optimizing the customer experience when you go in and work with the checkout. You start optimizing how you search, what kind of products you recommend to the end user. All kind of software systems is then also being a part of the modeling process here. And then, of course, we're also looking at the product angle on this. So what kind of products are the webshop actually offering to the end users? So are they increasing the number of products? Do we see an increase in terms of their brands, the categories and stuff like that? And then mixing all these insights together is also what we then can utilize to create the prediction of where webshop is actually heading.
So it's just not one simple kind of determination that or one simple data points or couple one. It's actually a mix. It's a big equalizer basically of different kind of parameters then that are put in relation to each other's and other web shops to understand how a web shop, if you have a category leader, for example, right? And then another web shop then is looked towards what are they doing in order to how is their growth looking and what are they doing in order to achieve that, and then applying the same type of thinking to other types of web shops and seeing kind of are there any correlations between X and Y.
Exactly. So it is a group of, we have many variables that is going in, but overall we have like 7 themes that is determining if a website is going to grow. And that is based on the entire market dynamics. So by looking at where the market's heading and how is that impacting the individual website.
Okay, right, cool. So let's now that we have the story behind it, why don't we jump into the platform and showcase exactly how it looks and look at examples from real web shops from 2 different markets and look at how we predict how they will develop.
For sure, let's take a look. I will share my screen here. So here we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, that's here.
Perfect. So right now we have a look at the Finnish webshop market, and we have identified around 21,000 webshops that is all classified both based on size and also growth. And if we take a look, we can, as an example, look at stadium.fi. I think they're shown in sports goods. Then if we scroll a bit down, and we see a growth prediction here that is like high growth. If we open it, we first of all see that we are rating all webshop based on 5 groups. So everything from negative growth to flat, that's around 0, low growth, high, and very high. Overall, we're looking at a webshop market that is growing and it's expected to grow. But there is webshop that has also had a negative growth, and there is also webshop that is, of course, very high. But one of the things that is always difficult when you're working with modeling is also how to explain stuff to the end user. Because there is a lot of technical things when you talk modeling about accuracy and data quality and all kind of things, but it is difficult for the end user to actually adapt. So that's also why we have grouped them into 5 different categories. And if we go further down, we have also tried to say, okay, if I'm working here in the Tembi platform and I want to be in dialogue with Stadium, and I tell them, hey, we see out of the data that you have a high growth. The first answer or question you get from Stadium will of course be, why are you seeing this? What is the reason behind this? So we have this what we call negative and positive signals. Negative signals on Stadium is stable financial performance. So that basically means that we have looked at the financial numbers of Stadium, and we can see that they have been quite stable for a period here, which of course have a negative signal compared to being in growth. However, also back to what we discussed a bit earlier, looking at financial numbers is not enough, and Stadium is also having physical stores. So we also need to apply other methods when we actually determining the growth of Stadium.
It also, I guess, you have to look at it from a different framework also, that Stadium is a big shop, which means, I mean, the thing having stability is not necessarily a bad thing. So it might be a negative factor affecting a growth scenario, but that the growth is also in relation towards other stores, right? So if you're a small store, you expect that it's much easier for you to have a high growth than being a market leader or amongst the top 100 biggest stores in a market and then have high growth as well.
It's a very good point because that is also what we see, that we cannot just look at growth individually. We also need to have the size aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because if you are a Stadium or if you are Boost, as we see over here, it is very difficult also to grow because, yeah, as you mentioned, you are at a very large company already. But what we see here with Stadium, and the reason it get a high growth, is that we have some positive signals. You can see that they start doing more allocation into technology, and the initiatives is indicating that they are actually adding on more systems. We can also see that they have upgraded and improved their technical setup and system. So not just the add-ons, but also how the entire infrastructure is working. And then at the same time, we can also see that they have expansion of delivery options. And especially the last point is where we are looking into what kind of provider it is, what kind of services, because we can often see the webshop that is offering all kind of delivery methods like home delivery, parcel boxes, etc., is also often at a larger scale or in a growth pattern. So that is also some of the positive signals here. And of course, this has to happen within a time frame because if nothing new is happening on Stadium, the model will also not see any new trends or patterns, which of course also will mean that the growth will decrease, or the expected growth, if we're not capturing new events or things in the webshop.
Yeah. And so how many of these type of different signals are we looking at, and both positive and negative ones?
So how we have created it is that we have the 7 overall themes that we categorize as negative and positive. However, each of the theme is also seen from 4 different angles. So that means that stable financial performance can also be, it could also be negative financial performance. It could have been high growth in financial performance, or it could be low growth. So an easy way just to understand it is that a data point is actually, we try to explain it to the end user in different ways. So they also have a story to build with the customer.
But it's also basically saying that it's much more depth to it than just saying it's just X as an explanation, but there's actually multiple factors that affect the first indication, and then before it then moves up or layer to becoming the signal where it is. Because you can have, just like you said, it could be a positive and a negative signal depending on the size of the shop. It could depend on how the market dynamics looks like. So it's more advanced than just a simple line determining it has stable growth, hence it is negative.
Exactly. So it's a very good point, and I think one of the hardest challenges when we are working with models, and we have done that for many years, is how to explain it in the easiest possible way. So we came up with this solution where it's very straightforward to look at a negative and a positive signal, and there's also converted technical setups into actually human words and descriptions.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump over to maybe the size indication to see how that looks.
Let's do it. Let's maybe take another market than Finland. We have a group of countries that we're currently covering. So let's jump to the Netherlands.
That's a huge market.
Yeah, they are like 130,000 webshops. So if we open up BGA here,
I think before we open up, it's also what's interesting here is what you can see now. If you just close down that BGA window, is also that you have here. So on the left side, of course, you have the filters, but you have all the different web shops. There's 130,000 different ones in the Netherlands. And then next to it, you have a column where you can actually filter on what type of growth signal they have, as well as the size indication. So you can actually find exactly the type of web shops that you're looking for based on different kind of parameters.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because we have both customers that is looking into what we call like medium-sized web shops, and also like small web shop with high growth potential. So by applying filters, you can also adjust your sales strategy, and also you can go in and actually figure out which one of the website that you're currently engaged with is also then high trending, and which one of them should you have an eye on. And then we also utilize this data on a higher level than finding the individual one, where we can also go in and do the analytics on top. So actually go in and see which web shop, which part of the market is growing, which part of the markets have the significant web shops in terms of size. And this also give another angle on understanding the market.
Yeah.
But let's jump into BGA here. Let's take a look. And we can see that we have classified as very large. And our size indication model works in the way that it classifies all web shops from 0 to 100. And we can see that within this scale, we have small, medium, large, and very large. Again, a way for us to try to convert a score into something tangible for the end user. And when we are at the very large, we are also often touching the largest part of the market. We're touching web shop that is often have a huge global coverage and different kind of elements that goes in. And in this case here with the BGA, we also only see positive signals. And that's because we have a score of 80, 89. And that's because they have global export coverage, significant investment in their technology. They have an advanced and scalable platform, and they also have multiple and flexible delivery options. So we are basically saying that there is some signals here that goes in and impact the score. We are not showcasing all signals. That's also a good important point to mention, because way more things go into the model than these 4 elements. But this is the ones that is both most significant, but also the easiest things for the end user to understand. So that's why we have this try to convert it into a way so it's understandable.
Then, it also gives you already that's quick indication towards it's always hard to determine whether a web shop, what size it is. When you look, for example, when you're prospecting or when you're looking into kind of a market opportunity in a specific category, having this gives you immediately an idea of the size and hence whether it's worth the effort or not.
Exactly. It's a good point. And we have also created this where we are looking at specific indicators, because we have customers that is focusing on web shop that is having a higher technological spend, as an example. So instead of looking at all parameters that goes into the model, we are also having the possibilities to separate the model and focusing on individual aspect of it, depending on the customer's need. So that means that if I click here, we can see that things are also changing in terms of their score, which, depending on the use case, is of course having an impact.
All right, we have a question here from Rickard on here on LinkedIn. So perhaps a stupid question, but who is your customer for this data? Not a stupid question at all. Do you want to start, Christian?
Yeah, let's start here. So maybe I should just start sharing the screen here. So our customers is both multiple different ones and also different departments, which means that our customers in last mile is both the sales department, and in sales they use this of course for finding the right customers to target, setting up their sales strategy, but also making sure that when you're working with account management that you're also targeting the right ones. So you're actually engaging with the right web shops. So that is some of the things that we are doing together with our customers. Then we also see an interest from another angle on this data, and that is from when you're working in agencies, web shop agencies, is going in here, figuring out, okay, is it actually my customer that is underperforming, or is it the entire market and their competitors as well? So that is also giving you an angle on it. And I mentioned sales from a last mile perspective, but there is also the analytics side of it. So understanding the direction that the competitors are heading. So are they actually targeting larger web shops than the average, or are they going for specific ones when it comes to product types, etc.? So there's multiple use cases and also multiple customers that is utilizing this data.
You can definitely also argue that the data builds you an understanding of your market. So you might think that you're targeting, let's say in a last mile delivery scenario, that you're targeting a specific cluster of companies. But in reality, you can also use this to kind of risk evaluate your portfolio. Are my clients actually on a growth journey or not in the next period of time? Knowing that, you can of course start looking into your operations. If the future looks like all of my clients are going to grow, are we prepared for that type of growth? The other aspect is, of course, when you're trying to define your ideal customer profile, what is this ultimate size? Where are we actually hitting the right time? When should we be? Who are optimal clients? And that way also be able to put this filters on, so you can actually target the right clients at the right time when they hit a specific parameter that you find it's good for you to start talking with them. And this in combination with a lot of the other types of data.
Really good. Exactly. And also this about figuring out when are we actually utilizing direct marketing on a group of web customers and potential web shops, and when are we actually doing direct sales. That is also some of the things where you can start separating the market from a different angle.
And then if you look at completely different other example, Richard also asked another question in terms of looking at competitors that want to look at new markets. Precisely this, because first of all, you can also understand your competition in different markets. And you can also understand, like, let's say you're a wholesaler, who are the web shops, who are the online retailers I would like to target, and be able to define the ones that might have the right product portfolio, but also they're on the right growth trajectory. And also kind of, is the size of that type of company worth looking after or not? And even before going to a market, you can use our data to do the analysis of the market and, for example, combine two different markets. Should we focus on Italy or should we focus on France? How does the competitor look like? What is the competitive landscape? Who are the potential retailers that we should be targeting? And how does the total addressable market look in these two markets? And like, what's the evidence? Because it's easy to think that, okay, we might have X amount of partners here, but in reality, the numbers might look completely different. So this helps you to better understand and get a more clear understanding of how the market looks like.
Yeah, and also I think the competitor angle from a last mile is just, I want to highlight it again, this about understanding what is your competitor strategy. So what are the web shop that they are at, what are their both size for, but also combining it with type of goods that they ship. So is it actually more expensive type of products combined with growing web shops that maybe increase their export activities? Is some of the elements that you can also start creating and see by combining the data from different angles. So now we have looked at two of all the data points that we, of our data points that we have and created. And of course, a lot of things goes into this, but you can also start combining with like Shopify. Is it Shopify pages that is more growing than WooCommerce? These kind of things is also an entire other angle on the same on the market.
All right, we need to wrap up. We're reaching the last seconds of time. We have a couple of questions that I will come back to in the comments. If there are any other things, don't hesitate reaching out to us. And thank you for joining and listening to us. Thank you, Christian.
Today.
Thank you.